Hello.
There we go. Can you hear us now?
I can, yeah.
So we're still missing Adam. I'm going to remind everyone to speak up because it's being recorded for the town and it doesn't always pick up if you're not.
You have to really enunciate.
Yeah, we have to yell and enunciate. Oh, and Adam's here.
I am.
Can you hear us?
We can hear you. Yep, I can hear you.
The royalties.
On vacation. is that
Jackie's on
correct?
vacation.
Okay, so that's everybody. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock on the dot. First item on the agenda, acceptance of the secretary's report. Is there a motion? I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, discussion. No discussion. Yeah, all right, hearing none, we will move to a vote. Because we're still partially on Zoom, I believe we still need to do a roll call. So we will go around the room. Paul. Yes. Amy.
Yes.
Chris. Yes. Susan.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Adam.
Yes.
It's a yes for me. Okay. The next item on the agenda, acceptance of monthly staff reports. Is there a motion?
Second.
Okay, discussion. What was your sweep tour?
What was that? The library suite?
The walk around?
Oh, yes, we put the statistics in the last report, right? In the June, was it the June one? Now I don't remember.
I know. Where is it? Where do you see it?
Second paragraph. Start with what's. Was that the secretary's report? Sorry, that's last one's.
That,
You are
yeah,
right.
we did the sweep last one. I thought there was another one. Yeah, this is hard because we've had the summer.
I believe I missed the
You
last
missed
meeting
that
because I was
meeting,
in Alaska too.
So you've had more than the
Yeah.
summer. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The sweep went well though.
To that point, there were a lot of puts and takes on personnel. What is the current outstanding need for hiring for the library?
Part-time.
One part-time or?
Yeah.
It's not bad.
So we have a new youth librarian.
Molly.
Nice.
There's a lot of turnover in the library world, just in general.
Right.
A lot, yeah.
And there was I don't know if a revamp is too strong a word, but you took a fresh look at the page program. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think everyone's gonna be happier with it. It's, so you're making a 1-year commitment now, instead of hiring somebody and, you make a 1-year commitment which matches the school year. And, you have a schedule. So people sign up for a schedule, they work that schedule, then in the next year, if things change, they reapply for another schedule. So that way we're actually getting the work done because too many people needed too many changes,
What's the minimum
Because-
age?
Is it 14?
It is
Yeah.
14.
Yeah, they get working papers.
Yeah, very good. I thought someone in a child in my circle, someone was maybe doing it. I didn't realize that it went down to 14.
It's gonna be our starter this.
People have been hired now and they've started, yes. Yeah, we have a full contingent of pages now. And it's working out, so. Yeah.
That's good.
It's a fidelity issue.
Sounds, yeah, fidelity's fine, except the administration of it is always, you're always in a phone tree somewhere. And Sharon's name is still on and things, and they send things and it doesn't get where they think it's supposed to be, but I have what I need and I have access. I know everything's okay. It's just address issues that we're trying to straighten out.
But they can statements and good.
The statements are fine, and I have electronic access to those, so they're fine.
Can you tell us a little bit about the unrestricted gift that came in?
Yes, that was,
expected or
we have,
surprised?
we've had a similar gift before, and that was from the Creedons. Walter and Ellie Creedon for a long time patrons. And that went to the gift funds. This, yeah.
Anything else from anybody? Staff reports. Then we'll move to a vote on a motion to accept the monthly staff reports. Paul?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Chris? Yes. Susan?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Motion passes. Public participation. I didn't see anyone when we hopped in. Suppose it would be throwing an alert Zoom wise yeah. All right. So moving right along. Correspondence. There was a couple of items of correspondence, at least one.
There was a message from Annie, who's, you have funded her tuition reimbursements. That was a thank you note. And there was another thank you note from someone who won a anniversary bookmark. They liked it. And the other correspondence just had to do with open meetings and the Zoom thing that's been extended to March 31st.
Meaning we have to continue on Zoom until then, or
That we can, it extends the extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum. So when this changes, we may have to have a quorum in person, but some people will be able to join in remotely. I think the town, no matter what happens with this, the town is always going to want us to do so that the public can participate remotely and so that we're recorded and they can archive those. I think that was all correspondence.
All right, very good. Committee reports, budget.
There isn't anything for the budget tonight, but in October, that will be an agenda item because we're getting ready for the new budget season.
Okay. And it looks like we closed out almost on the dot our previous year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. It was good. Good to see you talking tens of dollars left on the table.
I know.
All
I have
right.
a question about the FY23 operating budget.
That's this year? Is that-
Yeah, okay. Here there was a couple of things. Just because we're 3 months into the year, so, the office equipment was at like 49%. And I don't know if that's just
Okay,
like
that has,
heavy front-loaded.
yes, that has something that we pay up front. And it covers us for the whole year. It's a contract.
Okay. I figured it was something like that. And something also would be the network service.
That's Noble.
Yeah, that's.
And that is, we pay the bulk of the databases up front. So it's like $8,000 quarterly, but or every other month is $8,000. And then there's a big cost for all the databases, and that's why so much gets gone. Yeah, it's all normal.
So you mentioned Noble, just double back quickly. Was something in the report about Noble's added the catalog to make it Google searchable so that you search on a book and then it can direct you to.
It's linked, the catalog is linked, yeah.
It's really slick.
Yeah, it's nice, because that's, other businesses have that you Google something and it will say, you know, it's a little
But
goal.
I don't have, right, yeah.
And so now your options, not just what you can buy, but
That's
it's
true.
also your local libraries. And of course, Google knows where you are, so
Of course,
we can tell you which library is near you.
whether you use Google or not, yeah.
It
Um,
popped up, when I tried it, it popped up right on the right now for me, and it's very interesting, because it would be interesting, I don't know if there's a way of tracking how people to the website, it doesn't really matter, how many people come in through that way, but it's just almost just like free promotion of the library, even if not just for that book, but just like
Oh, yes.
as a reminder of like.
Oh,
libraries. I
yes.
thought it was really great that they did
Yeah,
that.
it's great. And it didn't cost us more. They did it within the existing. It's been, has that been about a year now that I'm working on that?
For a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, yeah.
Be interesting to see if that drives up library cards. You know, just, are more people coming to get a library card?
Because they see that as an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody Googles, that's the one thing.
okay, building and grounds, I don't have anything new to report.
No, I don't think there's anything new. There's lots of things, but nothing new.
What's going on with the front, I saw there was a $10,000 capital start on a front step thing, and I think last time we talked about front steps.
It's
And I'm
the-
asking because I'm
it's the-
repointing my house today.
It's the same, it's the same thing. It wasn't done because of the pandemic. And the town has a piece of equipment that's gonna work on that, and it hasn't been free. So I need to contact them again and find out when that's gonna be done. I don't fully understand it. They need to know what's underneath it before they can figure out how they're gonna fix it. Right, because the theory was that what was underneath it was wooden and it deteriorated. But if that's not the case, it may be a simple fix. So they're gonna look at it anyway.
That's a wooden structure, so putting on that.
So, well, it's just the stairs. It wouldn't be,
Still,
it wouldn't be the
that's not
plaza.
carry.
I know, I thought so too, but that's what they thought was a possibility.
The definition of bay would be,
The trustees like 10 years ago, but Tim was among them. And people who had done the building remembered
okay,
when they did the renovation. Dave says he remembers seeing in there and that it was hollow, but he couldn't remember what the structure was that held it up.
Speaking of Tim and buildings and grounds, where are we on the front sign?
I was gonna ask about that. I can put that on my list. So it's on my list, but as it happens, if you're a homeowner,
It's very long.
once you
list.
start with that list, it's attached to all these other things. And I don't know if anyone has noticed, but most of the signs in the building will not lead you to where you think you're gonna go. So a lot of signs need to be fixed in this building. And the people who did the original signs are no longer in business. So we have to find signs that are, complementary. So it's like a double project. I'd like to find one person to do them all. And we want to find somebody who's on state contract.
And tie that in with the marquee sign outside?
Yeah, I'd like to see if I can find someone who is willing to do it all. There were two people I contacted and neither one of them would do outdoor stuff. They said I could call them back about indoor, but they don't do outdoor.
talk to somebody else.
So, no, I haven't. I probably should.
Because he's fairly generous, there's other stuff around town, he's doing things. He could handle outside, I believe.
Yeah. I know you're interested in it, so when I get some information, I'll run it by you.
You said there were a lot of things under this. What's the most pressing thing? Is there leaks or, in terms of what needs to be done in buildings and grounds? Because I know you had some issues
Yeah,
with leaks.
the roof is serious. We keep patching it and it's okay. But the town knows that we don't wanna, I don't want a problem because if it happens in the old part of the building, the restoration would be really expensive. So a leak is gonna be really expensive there. So we don't want it to happen. And the town knows that. But it's lots of little things, it's been 25 years and we needed a new refrigerator and just, things are starting to get a little dingy and things you don't notice, like out here, that little banquette,
Yeah.
There's a hole in it. I mean, who knew? It's so worn that there's a hole in it. Like that, we can't, we gotta fix that, you know? And the chairs upstairs need to be rebuilt. They're, you know, when you sit in it, you really kind of, the trustees room chairs, they're not just even reupholsterable, they have to be rebuilt a little bit. And then it will be the red room, and there are carpets, and there's gonna be some painting. It's just, you know, you have to walk around and keep looking.
You have an all extensive list.
Yeah, so we do, we have the capital list that goes from year to year, and it looks 5 years out, but that's usually the bigger things. But there is like this painting on that, that's all part of the schedule. But the schedule almost has to be reimagined, because as things get older.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's worth like, if you prioritize, take a couple of months and prioritize all this stuff and then see kind of where else we could get at.
That's gonna be the building committee, and they'll walk around, we'll get with Dave and like prioritize.
Yeah,
It's funny how the priorities will change within a year too, like you think you have the priorities all set, and then something is like, oh, no, we're gonna do that. Like now on Avon Street, there's some pointing that needs to be done. And I hadn't noticed it before, and like in one season, that's worn out, and that, you know, so we gotta get on that. So that's that answer.
I would just move. I know a realtor.
it's just so easy to do that.
Well, that kind of speaks to one of the letters at the end, the packet about the comment, or was in the staff reports about the comment received about somebody visiting the library, it's not a regular patron, just speaking about beautiful library.
Yeah, that was a Melrose patron. And they closed, and he had never been here before. And he said, he said, I travel everywhere, and I've been so many places, and I've been in so many libraries, and I just cannot believe how beautiful this is. It doesn't look like a library. I think that's why, when you come in the front, it's not really a library. It doesn't look like a government building. It doesn't look, you know, so it's kind of like a hotel.
Are you getting a lot of Melrose residents?
Probably, yeah.
And is there a way to track that, or well, you would know by their cards?
Yes, I mean, I don't know. We can see if they're
Noticeable.
coming up. Yeah, when they're coming up, we can't run reports on that.
Right.
But, well, actually, we can.
Yeah, we can
tell because we can see out of network.
circulation. Yeah,
Yeah.
we get the circulation for every out of network, you know. And sometimes it's an ILL, but it's gonna peak up because they don't have as many books available because they're in a small location.
How long are they closed for?
A year and a half.
Well, they reopened in there already in their temporary location, and I think at least a year.
So as people get used to going there, they'll start going back.
Yeah.
You know, will be a temporary bump. And then once they reopen, we may have some Wakefield patrons going there.
Where same location. right?
Same
Just
location. They're doing there what we did here. They're restoring the original Carnegie building, and they're adding.
The next item on the agenda is the Friends.
That was me. That was their first meeting back at the end of December as well. They're doing really well. They have a really healthy bank account right now. I think they just topped 6 figures. So Catherine made a request at their meeting to cover the years of museum passes, adult programs, children's programs, decor, art exhibits, pop-up tents, etc. So they granted her request. Right? Yeah, they wanted that 20,000. Their board they've got all the board positions filled. I mean, it's a really, you know, after a few years of unsettled kind of turnover there, they had a great turnout, and everyone's got a role. They've got a newsletter coming out in a couple weeks. 350 members so far, or 350 members for fiscal year 2022. they're working on putting out an article in the item to kind of recap everything they've done since it's been a little quiet with COVID. They haven't been quiet, but it's the publicity. So they've done 2 farmers markets, Festival of the Lake, teacher giveaways. They're giving them to charities. And then the book sale. At the meeting, it was questions whether or not they could stay in the herd. So they started the discussion about the new location, and then Catherine sent was it you that sent the email out? Saying that they do get the herd for another year, right? They are guaranteed it for this year, yeah. So, but they are starting the process of looking for new books on space and storage space and all that. So if anybody's got a really big crush. So
Stay in the herd through the June.
Through the June sale, yes.
yeah, they did make, I think the numbers were still getting tabulated, but roughly just over 11,000 in books this year.
Gift funds.
I don't think there's anything new since the last time, but if we should proactively look at that as we're going to be looking at budget in October anyway, I think we can talk about that, or, you know, plan a subcommittee meeting at some point. Timing wise, it probably makes sense for us just to, again, be proactive, but I don't think there's any updates since June.
To Scott's point, I think, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but because the Upland account is the big one. They're sitting on a fair amount of income in that account. Is there a point at which we need to start considering spending? I know, you know, the storm clouds are mounting on the horizon, but
Right, so I think when we talk about the budget next month, we'll include what happens with the trust funds. What's really significant about the trust funds is that they cannot all be used. Like the Upland money, there's a lot of money there, the $600,000
Yeah, no, but
in Upland, and there's 71,000 that's available to be spent.
right, that was the number I was looking.
But that can only be spent on books.
Right.
So,
Sure, but
right,
you
so,
know, we have other buckets of money that we're spending on books, so there's,
right,
you have some flexibility with where you pay for what, right? Anyway, like you and
Right.
Scott both said, so something we can address. I was just concerned that, I didn't know if there was, if you were carrying some like personal
well, we.
threshold where it's like,
Yes.
wow, we need to
No,
spend.
sort of, and we are, so part of what happened with the gift funds is we wanted them to recover because we had spent them down and we wanted them to recover. And they have recovered nicely now, and we haven't needed them the last couple of years, so that's been nice. But I think some things are coming up where we are gonna wanna use some things. We have a plan in place. Have we ever mentioned this before? Yeah, it wouldn't, what we did.
It's in my report.
Oh, it's in your report, okay, so we are considering digitizing the daily item. We're looking into what that would be. And it would be a way for the public to have access to search it with a keyword. It's extremely expensive, but there are lots of good reasons to do it from a preservation standpoint. So that's something that we want to put, and that's the kind of project that we hold money a little bit to say, you know, that's how we
Yeah,
did
no, that's-
RFID. And so we do try to do that. But you're right that we do all want to have that entire conversation as part of the budget conversation. So everybody knows what we're spending, what on and why we might hold a little back, and how much we should hold back. Like in Saugus, they call that prudent reserves. I love that. It's a prudent reserve, which is important to have for, you know,
Oh, yeah.
certification reasons. It's good to have something in your pocket. So we'll look at all those numbers.
Yep, great.
There are the other things that is anticipated. I think they've been stuff on digitizing writing.
Yeah, it depends on what's paid by the town and what we will pay, we'll want to look at those things, what's gonna come from what place. So there are big ticket items, but they tend to be capital, like the roof. The roof is something that the town want to find a way, and they may have ways to do that with grants and things like that, so I have to talk to them about that. But there's always something on the horizon that might be nice to have.
Legislative advocacy? You know?
Anything you need to know?
Okay, personnel, we touched on it a little bit, anything else? Very good, we'll move on to the new business. The flag policy.
Okay. So I've been thinking about the flag policy all summer.
Times.
So I don't know if anybody here has had to do a policy from scratch. We usually just kind of update them. When we're working on one from scratch, so I just wrote some notes that we'll work from here. So good policies are developed by being content neutral. So that means you don't want to, if we're going to talk about flag policy, you don't want to think about a particular flag. It's all flags and every flag. So it's neutral, you know, because as soon as you start picking and choosing, whatever you create is not gonna be good policy. It comes out better when you don't have something in your mind, because invariably we cannot imagine how that policy is gonna actually come into play at any point in time. So we just want to be in a content neutral manner. It needs to be legal. They can be challenged in court. So you can say, you know, I don't want smelly people in the building. And you really can't say it like that. You can have standards, but they have to be legitimate and apply across the board. And you can't, so you have to be really careful about how you do things like that, because if it's challenged in court, you lose. I don't know if anybody remembers, we had white supremacists here. I booked that meeting room. So I learned a lot about how policy works to protect you. And how democracy works to allow everyone their say, but it has to fall within guidelines. So that's what we're working towards. The other thing about it is that a procedure is then the logistics of administering the policy. So you want your policy to be easily administered. You don't want anything with so many, you want it as simple as possible, because once you have to parse it, there's more room for reinterpretation and all kinds of things like that. And having said that, meeting room policy is about 5 pages long, and you have to sign and do all these things. And there's a lot of legalese, but it is still relatively simple, even though there's a lot of text there. It's simple. So for the background of this, there's different ways we could go with it. But the reason we're considering a flag policy is because the town did not have a second flagpole. They requested that we fly a flag that they had approved, the town council had approved, to be flown by the town. And the trustees also approved it, providing that it didn't set a precedent. And then we flew flags on that pole. The town now does have a flag policy, and I think I included that in the packet I sent that to you. And I reviewed flag policies that have been written in response to the Shirtliff case that was in the Boston thing. So I read about flags all summer, and the other libraries that wrote flag policies, I pretty much had reservations about all of them. They deal with a lot of the policies deal with flags on poles as well as flags and banners on the building and on the property. So that's becomes broader. So one suggestion I have is to just, for starters, design a policy that confines itself to the use of those poles. Because I think that's an easier call. And it may not be the easiest call, but we'll see. I would propose that we do not fly any flag on those poles other than the American flag that's already there and the state of Massachusetts or the town of Wakefield flag on the other pole. I think that's what the poles were designed for, and they're both the same height. And it's a problem to have flag that's not an American flag on a pole next to it when it's the same height. The other thing about it is that it's not necessarily the library's role to define town sentiment or government speech. So the shirtlift case addresses government speech, but we don't speak on behalf of the government. We speak on behalf of the library. So so the best case scenario is that the town erects its second pole, which I think they want to do one that's a little lower. And so they have the American flag and the POW flag on their initial pole, and then there will be another pole next to it where they will fly things routinely that will go through the town council. So I would propose that for the main flags, we say that we're not going to fly anything other than those two things. We do have smaller poles that have been on the railings, that have been for reading, summer reading. And when we first got Sundays, Sharon had open signs on them. Those are smaller poles.
Is this like you mean like the kind that you would have mounted to your house? Like a angled?
Yeah, it's so that there's something on the railings and you fit it in. I think it's metal. And we haven't used them in a long time. We used them for reading one year. And we were gonna use them for BBCon.
So there's brackets on the railings.
There's brackets on the railings. So they come out like over the sidewalk.
And you just go front.
There's some out front and there's also one at the Avon side.
I mean, just thinking about that, I think for your proposal, if we were going to do a flag policy, I'd probably recommend splitting that by the main poles and then the other poles, just so we don't get, because technically there's still flags. So someone would say, hey, on the main poles, we're gonna fly these flags, these other poles, for flying flags, and like at least define temporary, auxiliary, whatever, however they're defined. But I think having that distinction in the policy that we do create would probably be beneficial to us.
So something like those then would be, in those bracketed railing flags would be a temporary, not something, and I'm gonna use the June flags that we did as an example, like the Juneteenth and the Pride flags. Those obviously were up for a month, something like that, you would have to take down at night, right? Is it like just a wooden pole stuck in a bracket that is accessible at an accessible height that anyone could walk by, and so you would want to take it down, you would leave it up all night necessarily?
It's in the camera, so we could see if it was gonna be vandalized.
Yeah, I think we put something from Blossoms there one year, way back in the day. So, I mean, I take it as, and I always like to see them more something that is specifically library, so an event.
It always was.
Or, yeah, I mean, I think we should stick with that for that.
This,
It's not like Go Patriots.
yeah,
Right,
this was,
because
this
there's always something going on here.
I know, this was never an issue because the town had its own polls.
Right.
Because it's really, that's sort of where I'm running into a problem, is that the trustees are responsible for this building. Town council is responsible for the entire town. We can't be taking on the government speech section.
Sorry. I think I agree in the sense that like those polls seem to be very programmatic. So, you said earlier that we only speak for the library, not for the town. In a sense, like using BBCon, right? We're saying this is an activity that's happening at the library. And to use an example, if there was a pride event happening at the library, then those flags could be flown for that. Or if there's a fundraiser, whatever the event, it's a programmatic library thing, not necessarily a government speech thing, if that makes sense. Like those polls are more about this is what's happening inside the library or this activity that we're doing at the library.
Yes.
But I don't think we can completely separate them unless you take a look at the meeting room policy.
Yes.
Because if a group of whatever type is using the meeting room for a day, do they get to then fly their flag outside? Because then that's an event taking place at the library. You know what I mean? Like,
Not unless you specify that it's a library program initiative or event. And there was one other library that had that. That they rented it there.
One thing to be using the space in the library, it's another thing for it to be a library sponsored or library
Right.
affiliated.
Right, versus library programming. Actual library programming versus having an event at the library are two different forms of advertisement,
no, I think it just needs to be worded carefully because doesn't our meeting room policy kind of state that you can't have a private event in a meeting room? If you take a meeting room, you're having an event that could be open to anyone.
Well, it has to be open to the public.
Right, so I feel like it would need to just be worded very carefully then. In terms of if this is for library events and you booked a meeting room, and you're having an event in the library, which is open to the public. Then
Yeah,
you get
that's
to,
not a
you know what I mean?
library, yeah, library use of the meeting room is not a library event. And the library doesn't have anything to do with meetings that are booked by the individuals.
Right, they're not advertised at all.
Yeah, you're using space.
So the actual events are much less than, the use of the library.
Yeah. So in some libraries, it's very similar to booking space, that people will want to book whole space. They'll want to use the space as well. So this is a recent policy from Illinois. The library does not flag flags at the request of the public, any organization, or any individual. It's not intended to serve as or create a forum for free expression by the public. So the flag poles aren't speech. So a flag is a symbol. And you're flying the flag for a symbolic reason. I think that's the idea that the town council had. But we wouldn't necessarily do that. It would be more in relation to an event or an initiative. And it would probably be supported by things that were in the building, whether that's a display or books or an event or speakers. So it's a little richer
You're
than
talking
just a
about
simple.
more calling it a banner. Rather than a flag, because a flag has that
Yeah.
feeling of the American flag,
More like an
flag, whatever.
advertisement than a symbol.
Yeah.
It's a promotional. Yeah. Some sort.
Could be.
It should be. I think that might be the word that you're gonna use is promotional. For an event or something in the facility that.
Can we call it something different than the flag? Because I think flag, immediately people go to all the flags we see.
Promotional banner.
Yeah,
So it would be the library's, it would be the library's promotional
Yeah.
flag or banner.
Yeah, flag or banner in support of library sponsored program. Something like that, that indicates who's sponsoring it, what's covered, and you might even tuck it in at the end of the policy, you're talking about the main flagpoles, and say all other flags and banners on library property are intended for blah, 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 at the discretion of the director, or whatever name you want to put.
Is there any point in tying into the town council's policy for that blanket end statement?
Well, I
How
think,
they address it?
I think the statutory piece is on the left.
In three, in section 3.
Are we talking about the town council's policy?
Yeah,
Yeah, so what I had come up with for first paragraph made reference to that. The library flies an American flag in accordance with the policy set forth in Article 3. And I guess you're saying it would also be Article 4.
yeah, maybe I haven't read that.
We don't typically fly the POWMIA flag. Doesn't mean we couldn't, but we currently don't. So, so the library flies the flag in accordance with the policy set forth in Article 3 of use of flag poles on town halls property adopted June 13th by the town council of the town of Wakefield, Massachusetts. A state of Massachusetts or town of Wakefield flag may be flown from the second library flagpole. No other flags or banners will be hung from the library flagpoles. And then a second section to that
Just,
could have to do with the promotional flags or banners that are flying based on, that are there based on library programs, initiatives, or events.
I think for your first, that first paragraph is good, but I think we should define those main flagpoles. Which you made flagpoles other things. Should define different, like, hey, on these flagpoles, this is what we apply. You know, in accordance with, you know, the town's policy, or, you know.
So start by saying the library has 2 flagpoles on its plaza. So
Yes.
identify the plaza,
Yes.
identify the plaza flagpoles.
Because I think that splits it up, and now we don't run into an issue, a potential issue in the future where we're calling the main flagpoles promotional flags, you know what I mean? Because it's like,
Those are the,
in all reality, what we're trying to do is kind of protect us, but also make the policy general enough so that you have some ability to, you know, promote items and things, but also not so restrictive that we get tied in. And I think by defining just the
Establish what those
Yes,
goals are.
establish what, you know, once we can kind of set the left and right limits there, then we can go in and break it down. And
okay,
Any of the
so I'll start it by referring to the 2 main flagpoles on the plaza. And that an American flag, according to the town policy, can fly there, and then on the second pole, a state or town flag can fly there. And then that would be the first part of the policy. And then the second part will have to do with promotional flags. Is that what we want to call them? Promotional flag?
Banner.
I like promotional banners. Chris said it, but I like that personally.
Does the library have an existing banner policy?
No.
What's
No.
the current policy with like the community bulletin board? So if I came in and said, can you put my flyer up? What's the policy?
I was gonna check you while you're looking that up. Do we own a state of Massachusetts flag right now, or something that we can put on the second flagpole? Like, it feels a little weird to say, well, we're not gonna let anyone else fly a flag on our flagpole, but it's gonna sit there empty. Like if we're saying it can only be a Massachusetts flag or Wakefield flag, we should get one of those flags and put it up. You know what I mean?
There's never been a flag on. It's
I
been
know,
empty forever.
But
There's
now,
never been a
but now
flag.
it's known that there's an empty flagpole there that.
But there's also the state flag now is under discussion.
Yeah.
So it might be if we get a new state flag, we would want to fly it,
Yeah,
or maybe, you know,
Then what's?
Is there a
what
town
about
of Wakefield?
flag?
yeah, we might want a town flag.
Is there a town?
Yeah.
That was my next.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what
And then
that looks
also-
like. So, yeah, when you say, I think that's a big flag.
It's some of those high school senior banners.
So the public notices, are subject to approval. It's very similar to space in the, meeting room space. It needs to appeal to the general public. There's a time limit. And it's limited to civic, educational, philanthropic or recreational events.
This is the town.
This is our public notices policy.
Oh.
That's the bulletin board.
That's the
policy.
bulletin board policy.
I think, yeah, I think it was I think Adam was asking for something that would serve as guiding light for like a banner policy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it tangentially applies, but it's not fully.
And I don't want to muddy the water because I'm sure the water's muddy enough already with this, but I think we should be careful about having one policy for a banner, right? Let's call it a banner or a flag, and another policy for putting a giant poster up in the inside. And right now we have a policy for if I walk in with my poster, then this is where it goes and this is the policy. And I don't know how often those get rejected, if at all, but that's where somebody would challenge it. But if our policy is that we can do that in one space, maybe we just need to say the only place where public play happen is in that spot. But I just want to make sure that those policies don't contradict each other in a way that somebody can start picking at the corners.
Yeah, my thought is, shouldn't they be aligned? Because then it protects us against, I think one of the concerns is avoiding speech or support of any kind. It's really more event driven between posters and banners. I think, yeah, probably the language should be fairly,
Yeah, so
Synonymous.
the major difference would be that the public notices are public notices. There are no library notices in that public board. Those are public notices. So we would probably want to restrict the flags or banners, promotional banners to library events and initiatives.
yeah.
And the promotional banners, you're talking about only outside, right?
Yeah.
So this is the policy for the outside,
Right.
showing of like what we're talking about. I'm not talking about, because there's different things that go on inside. That's
Because there may be multiple things going on inside.
Right.
There could be things in the youth room and all kinds
but
of.
like how you display that or how you advertise that is not within this policy. This is an outdoor promotional policy, an outdoor flagpole policy.
And I concur with you. I think Adam, you make a good point that they should be aligned, but I think by defining them, and I feel like they're separate in the sense like, hey, we can't contradict the policy, but we're not trying to say that the flagpoles are a public, bulletin space. And that's just how I'm reading it. So.
Yeah, I think that as long as we say that public notices go in there and these aren't public notices, this is library programmatic things. I think at least that they acknowledge that the other policy exists. So therefore we kind of direct say, if you're a public, this is your avenue to post your notices and this is the procedure. We don't have in like the main BB hall, there's no like flagpoles that you would ever hang a flag from inside, is there?
Maybe. Oh, there's one.
No, there's space to put a pole. There are no poles, but there's,
Like, have we ever hung bunting or banners off of like the balconies in that main hall? No.
we never have before, but.
Have you ever had any?
But blossoms, but I don't know if it's been bunting, but.
like events where people have brought like flags to Hay. And I'm just asking because like we bring them around all the time, like military, you know, we have promotion. So but has that, I don't know if that's very common, like civilian life.
Meeting room policy doesn't, I mean, I'm guessing just based on how I looked at it, but like you can't tack anything to a wall. That's part of the policy, so.
No,
Maybe we should specify as like exterior flags.
it's exterior.
Yes, that kind of aligns with that. And I think he makes a good point that saying, hey, like, we're not using these flags, you know, for public notices. You can refer to the other policy, and that's where, you know, it's a different space. Because we're not intending on using the flags as like public notices or as speech, like that's kind of the sentiment I'm getting, like we're not.
But if you're limited to library promotional banners, then it's a library promotional banner and not a public notice.
Yeah, that's what's gonna separate them, is that it's,
Public notice inside does say this, those certain things about it has to be an event, it has to be. There were 4 different things, which I don't remember them, but it kind of is specific, I think, but
Oh,
it's
I
specific.
get what you, like, I think like we're on the same page. I just am questioning and maybe muddying the waters too much as to how it could be read by somebody else, you know?
Yeah, I think while they're 2 different things, we want them to be complementary. That we're not saying one thing about the public notices and another thing about, but the difference is significant because we're talking about library functions as opposed to public functions.
so
So
does
the
our,
public function thing kind of matches the public use of the meeting room, and it also matches the space issue.
does our public notice for inside match the town policy, public notices,
I don't
because
know.
they have bulletin boards at the end.
Right, I don't know. I don't even know if they have a policy, or if they just do what they want. I think libraries are sometimes held to a different standard because by statute, you are open to everyone. By statute, you are open and free to all. You know, that's who we are, regardless of banners or anything or whatever. So your policies always have to go with that. So the public notice gives you the opportunity to, within those parameters, be open and available to anybody, as long, just fit this little parameter. That's fair. Whereas I think town hall can say, we only have so much space, this is what we're doing. And, you know, you have other places to go. I don't think they actually have the same standard. So their policy could be stricter.
It's almost, not to belabor it too much with this, but I think it's like a 3-tier approach, which is their flags are tier 1, which is they're off limits. Here's why. Within the building itself, to skip 1 tier, it's, again, this is, like you said, Catherine, this is public use. You're supposed to come in and it's open to all, and you can, you know, if you teach SAT, ACT prep and you have something that's valuable, that's free for the public, you can post it up there. But tier 2, in between the two, is we're an organization that needs to market programs, right? Programs that we are charged to do or believe in. And that's where the banners kind of come into play. How we word that, I'm not sure, but I feel like that's sort of the, you know, those like the 3 layers of, I think, what we're looking at ultimately.
And Scott, I think we can word that fairly simply by saying, hey, we defined our main flagpoles. I'm just, that doesn't have to be how it's worded, but for the promotional banners, here's our thing. And for public notices, we have our other policy.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think, like when we put it like that, I think that, hey, that protects us, or, you know, kind of sets the left and right limits. And then the second piece is it defines what we're gonna post, you know, what can be flown or posted, displayed outside. And then the last piece of it is more like who has the discretion to authorize that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have, like, in terms of next steps, would it be like writing a draft of the policy that you, like, has this been helpful in terms of writing that draft, or I didn't, no, I know I didn't.
We'll see next month.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of like moving the conversation forward, like, because we could, it's sometimes it's easier to have something written and respond to it.
Yeah.
Is Tom Mullen, I'm sorry, is Tom Mullen involved in the policy creation or no, because it's a library?
He often should review it at some point. He will give you options, you have the authority to do what you want to do. And he can help you. And he's reviewed lots of these policies to make sure that we can actually function with them.
Has there ever been anything on the bulletin board you didn't want there?
I don't think so.
Has there ever been anything that the trustees should have looked at and said no?
No, I don't think so. It doesn't mean it would never happen, but it's, I think by limiting it to civic, educational, philanthropic, and recreational. And part of the policy said handbills promoting candidates are not permitted, but announcements of political meetings are acceptable. And that conforms to other laws that, you can't set up tables and canvass people in a library because it interferes with their use of the building. But you can promote in other ways, in quieter ways, promote, and you can get signatures for candidacies.
In that, is there something that should say at the discretion of the trustees? Or do you not want to go down that
Talking
path?
about the flag policy or the,
Any one of the policies? Because you mentioned that we're separate,
Right.
and then the trustees are the ones that will make decisions on some of those items. So why would it not be at the discretion of the trustees?
So if the promotional banners were based on library initiatives, that would be the library staff creating the initiatives. Would you want the authority to okay every banner for every
No.
initiative?
No.
I mean, you might, you might. I don't know.
I think
They
we
do, the
defer to
town
the,
council does that to cover them, that's what you're talking about at five,
Yeah.
not just.
yeah,
Town
yeah,
council is covering that, they do that, so that it's not a lot of discussion.
So in a situation like that, wouldn't we just say, like, so let's just say the library's doing a Festivus celebration and they want to put up a bunch of Festivus flags. It would be more about the initiative than the flags, right? Like if the trustees said, we shouldn't be celebrating this, or this shouldn't be an initiative of the library, then the staff would have to take the banners down because they're not doing the initiative anymore, right? It's less about the flag, it's more about the program itself that we would have the ultimate say over, right?
I also think it's different in the sense that if we spell it out and say, hey, look, these are the flags that we're willing to fly promotionally, then we can leave that to the discretion of like the director of the assistant, because we don't have the issue where we're like, hey, look, you can't even fly any other flags. Like we've spelled that out. Here's the flags that are gonna fly. So to me, it seems like a moot point.
I don't want to get to the position where we're policing the programming that professionals.
Yes.
That's not our.
Except you do want a standard of what the flag looks like in terms of size. So, I mean, you would have to establish what is
So
going
from
to,
like initiative point of view, like I don't want to say, oh no. we
But
don't
if you
agree with
say-
programming, so let's.
if you say the
cancel it.
flag has to be of this size on this kind of, structure, because you don't want a flag to come in like this and you're gonna want a standard for what that flag is. So, that is going to influence how many people are going to produce those, how many things you're gonna produce those flags for. Something that's gonna be just used once for a particular group or something would not be worthwhile to do it.
Yeah, if it's all
for
library
that
flags,
standard.
then we're paying for the flags, essentially, right?
But do we have to
Well,
define that in a
well, it
policy?
depends. Now,
Someone may have their traveling banner or poles they put up for whatever events that they're gonna do. I don't know.
But that event would have to be something that we were coordinating with, right?
Yes,
So
but back to promotional library.
it probably takes us back to, what does that take us back to?
Thinking like if you had an author come in and speak and that author speaks all around the country and they have their own banner, that would be their own thing that they're bringing in, but it would be a library program, so they could find them, right?
Yeah, but, and I think that is open enough so that we're not like being too specific on our definitions where it might restrict us, but,
I think you want to be
But-
specific on size and appearance and, quality. I mean, you're not gonna want to put 2 flags.
I don't understand where you can. From this one.
So you don't want a really small flag, like you have to look at what is going to work there as a flag, because it's on the.
So you're assuming someone's giving us this flag.
Well, no, I'm saying like, now, if we wanted something with blossoms, it would be blossoms and blossoms would pay for it, not the library. If the book fair wants to do that, it would be the book fair that in a report of it, because it's something that is going to be used over and over again. As far as like something that the library is doing, you might want to have a general flag author event. And if they had, if the author had a specific, flag themselves, you're not gonna put one, there's 2 places, correct? Or there's 3,
There's 3.
there's one in the middle as well, right?
No, out front there's 2 and then there's
There's
one on Avon Street.
if we say at the discretion of
3.
the library staff, then like, they have, my thought process is if we say, hey, these are the flags we're gonna fly at the discretion of the library staff, then they have the ability to, kind of define those terms without us putting it in a policy.
I think you have to just, personally, I think you have to determine the size range. It doesn't have to be one size, but it has to be a size range of something that's not going to interfere with coming from the polls, for people walking in or any of that stuff. And I think that there's a lot of variety for that. If you do the flag over the street for the town, there's very specific things of size that it's not one size, but there is a range. So I think, for safety, for looks, for appearance, I think you don't have to say it has to be of like, a specific quality. I think a size range for what works on a railing is different than on a pole. That's all.
Yeah, I think having a size limit makes sense.
Right, so
But why would we stop at size, number one? Number two, why isn't giving that into the director's authority? The same, if Blossom showed up with a 35-foot flag, Catherine would say, get the out of here, right? I mean, it's just on the face of it. I
Well, it might work the same way that the digital sign works. So we have a digital sign and you're gonna put something on it, it has to fit on the sign. So that's not really part of policy so much as procedure. The procedure is that it has to fit.
Well, then would have to be something with that. So I think you would not somewhat, because, okay, if this is under it, we're just doing a flag, those are expensive to, produce. So you'd want to have some idea, and it takes time. So I just think that's something in somewhere that needs to be, I don't know if it's in the policy or not, but I think we would want to know what the safety and what the aesthetics of a flag in front of your building is going to look like.
If I was ABC,
One,
I was gonna spend the money to make a flag. I don't wanna spend, if I was spending $500 to make a banner, I don't wanna bring my $500 banner and be told, oh, that's too big, you can't use it. I would like to know ahead of time,
Right.
but it's gotta fit within these parameters. So I think keeping them
How's it different than where we are today?
Yeah.
I think the policy just needs to say like the banners at the approval of the director or assistant, or you know what I mean, so like that you're not, and then within the procedures, there's documentation about what the parameters are.
Are you limited by bracket in the attachment
I would
that's
think so.
there as to what you could actually put there?
Yes, but in the past, flags that have been put there have not, there isn't anything like that, and some of them fit well, and some of them didn't, and some of them disappeared, and some of them were very big and like flew into people walking or have kids. I just think that
Yeah.
it's a lot of money and it's a lot of effort. So it doesn't have to necessarily be in policy, but it's something I think we should look at, and someone needs to do that, because it's right on it's right on the railings. So that can be a problem if it comes out, do you know what I'm saying? So as a safety and an aesthetic,
I prefer not to drop it on someone's head when they're walking by. And
it depends
that
on,
lawsuit,
it depends on who and what the circumstances are. That's up for discussion.
I think Scott wanted to say something.
just boiling it down, in support of what Sue's saying, to boil it down to like really simple marketing. I think if you do have a standardized template, it's a way of establishing what is a supported programmatic library events. So they don't have to look all the same, but if they're similar format, similar design, et cetera. And again, whoever approves it, to Jeff's point, it might not have to be the trustees, maybe it's you, Catherine, but an argument of a standardized template, I think it makes sense, because again, that's how you distinguish between what is a library event. They have to have this certain type of banner, in other words.
I would agree with that if we had a clause in there where the library, here's a standardized template, or at the discretion of the library staff. Because I think when we're writing a policy, we also have to consider that inevitably something's going to come up that is outside of our policy. And do we want to go back and, redo the policy, or do we want to at least make it so that we're not tying our hands with that, in case something comes up where, I don't know, the Blossoms wants to do something that doesn't fit in this thing, and then we're like, oh, well, we wrote this policy, now we can't fly this flag. You know what I mean?
So
I'm not talking
so
about the
here's-
type of flag, I'm talking about the
Okay, right.
dimensions
Right.
because
It's-
we're responsible
yeah.
for the safety,
It's
the aesthetics
easy
of the
enough to have
library.
it, like you said, Scott, it's easy enough to have it.
So I have a phrase, standardized template.
And much of it would, at this point, much of it would be existing initiatives and things that we do. I think the other thing we have to think about is somebody who's gonna wanna partner with us to produce something that may not be something that we want to work on.
Can I just make a suggestion? So I think we all generally agree on the policy as it stands. That I think that maybe can we do two things? Can we say the policy is this and make it very strict to say the policy is the only thing that flies are promotional library banners. And then we can also, totally separate from this, so it's not in the policy, ask the library staff to draft and we can approve a procedure for standardizing and making it uniform what library promotional materials look like. And that way it's a library, because the moment we add in a little bit of like, and the library has to approve this, it makes it seem more like we're letting other people use it versus the only thing this is used for is library stuff. And then separately, let's say we need to create a procedure for standardizing our library banners. And that way they're not, we address both issues, because I do think that there is an issue there, but we're not intertwining them so much.
I think that's a good idea.
So
Like
that,
that.
The policy could just refer to
Yeah.
for the promotion.
so Jackie, does that cover the event of, that would leave us with our own promotional space, and wherever we partner, that could be part of our promotions. But that's gonna be following our own current procedures and policies for the way that we choose programming. Yeah. So it still leaves, displays are very open to just whoever. But the banners would be more in line to the things that we are actually committed to. We've got staff commitment to.
And again, is this internally, or is it purely the external, those poles on the railings, or are we talking about anything in the building?
I think we said external.
Everything
Only
outside,
external.
only outside.
Because I think if you book a meeting room, you should kind of be able to. Whatever you, to an extent, I mean, obviously you're not sticking things on the wall, but we shouldn't be so specific. For internal.
Yeah,
things.
I was thinking more along the lines of displays, like.
Library displays.
Yeah. Or anything else.
Have policies in like terms of standardization of your flyers, like if the children's section or youth section makes a flyer, does it have to have a certain, the logo has to be here and stuff? Do we have any of that stuff, or is that just sort of everybody trusts that we do it the same?
It's our dream. We work on it all the time, but it's not there yet. But it's what we would like to be more standardized. So the flags would be standardized, the banners would be standardized.
See that as a great like friend's gift or something, is a set of, trivia on tap banner and a whatever, and all your regular monthly events could all have their own banner that we can swap out in the morning.
I mean, that would make.
Tonight
that
is
makes
trivia
sense.
or something like that,
That's how I see it.
yeah.
But then we're just getting into a band with the sheet of the how frequently that we want to change out these banners. I guess if they come out every night anyways. Here they say.
You do usually bring them in,
Yeah.
they bring them in, and they're easy enough to bring them in. It's extra work, but it's not.
I mean, their brackets are low enough and they would be like lightweight enough that whoever's basically unlocking and locking the door at night. Put it right in the hallway easily.
Yes. And I imagine over time, we wouldn't want to overuse them. After a while, no one will see them
Yeah.
anymore. Right. So it would just be the things that were.
Right.
Okay.
So two more items on this. One, if there is not such thing as a Wakefield official flag, it should not be part of the policy.
Oh, right, okay.
And the other is when we did the two flags earlier, there was some issue with who was going to raise them. My understanding was that was because you had to climb up on top of something. I probably should have brought this up at the beginning, but if there's not an OSHA approved way to use the second flagpole, we should not be using the second flag.
Yeah,
They have lovely bells.
it's
Kind of like speed and reflexes,
not a
I'm
real
sure.
OSHA approved way, but I think that's why it's never been used. I think
Right.
it hasn't been, but the American flag, that gets changed out regularly. It's lowered when it goes half staff when it has to. And Dave kind of has that down to a science. You do have to use a ladder, but it's not, if you fell, you wouldn't kill yourself, but it's
That's not a standard.
It's, there were years they were hanging things above the door
Oh,
and on a big ladder over the
I
plaza.
mean,
That was definitely not OSHA.
we stood on the railing to do the June flags, but Dave offered a step ladder, like there was an alternative, we just chose not to use
three
it.
steps.
Yeah, but we climb.
I don't want to create a policy that puts the staff in physical jeopardy.
Right, it would just be, they would fly and that was it. They don't come up and like the main flag does not come up and down, it's just there, and it gets replaced regularly.
So up to a point though, as you mentioned, the Massachusetts flag can't fly higher than the US flag. So even if you're flying at a foot below, when you're lowering to half staff the US flag, you have to lower the Massachusetts flag.
I think that's why there's never been a flag on it.
It's why I'm bringing all this up, is like, there's the actual nuts and bolts of doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Can we remove the pole? Donate it.
Jackie,
Can we donate it to town?
quite a while ago, we just
Relocate, we relocate the boat.
What is it, just because the
Tax
road
deductible
doesn't
donation.
down low enough?
the whole pole is on the
On the rail.
baluster, yeah. It's built on top of it.
Can we revisit Adam's idea about Festivus? I mean, we can roll that into gift fund discussion next month if that makes sense. But if we have a poll already, I'm just saying.
There is still a poll of the AmeriCal, right, Adam? Was it just the trees have overgrown the pole? Was that the situation?
I don't know what the reason, but there's definitely still a pole there.
And I think that they want to add a pole at town hall. Because then they could put one that was lower and it was, or everything would work.
And that was, I think, what they voted on back in, like, so it'd be May.
They, I think.
Has that taken place yet? I haven't been at town hall. Is
Why
there,
don't we just donate?
did they put a second poll in yet? Or?
No, I mean,
Probably cost twice as much.
I say that in jest, but like,
Your part
if it's-
would hold it.
oh.
Yeah, it's pretty,
It's rather
it's like,
straight.
I think that's wooden, isn't it? That's a wooden pole out here. Yeah.
All I know was tall.
it's wooden.
It was going all the way up.
It's wooden, because I have to paint.
Well, then we
Way
could just
higher than
go
I
off
ever
the
thought.
top, put a decorative beehive capsule on top, like the Avon Street ones.
The flag poles for the town, are the town hall, town common, Merrick Civic Center, and Veterans Field. Those are the four that they have control.
They,
of.
they also control the schools, right?
I think it's,
I don't know.
It says in the policy, it says they control the schools as well. They have to.
That's right, they tiptoe around that, right? They say they officially do, but they would confer, whenever
right,
possible.
because if the schools have their own school board,
Because there's one up in Landrigan, there's one at the softball field, north of the high school.
I mean, I have one at my house, it's never been used.
So the school committee controls those with the DPW, that's what the first thing says. So those are for the school committee, like we decide these.
I feel like at this point, I think what Laura kind of moved to earlier is it's maybe we're ready to have something presented to us that we can kind of, if we need to make small, no.
Yeah, no, I think that's what we should
But
do.
now we're so throwing out tangents, and it would be nice if we saw this and said, okay, we approve this, but maybe make some minor edits here and there.
Right,
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
right.
Maybe we'll keep looking to Jack's suggestion. Which one? A second poll. Getting rid of it.
Getting rid of it. No, I think you just leave it there.
It wouldn't go random. I don't think it's
It's in the railing, but if it's made out of wood,
I
just
it.
cut it.
It feels like it's bracketed and part of the rail. I think if it came out of the railing, you would have some pointing to do.
Yeah. I feel like we need a trustee field trip to Plaza. To really go out there and see what we're talking about.
So what I had suggested was a state of Massachusetts or town of Wakefield flag may be flown from the second library flagpole. It doesn't mean it has to, but it may. So we can just still leave it as it's been for 100 years.
If they don't have one now, they may decide. to
Right.
have one
Yeah,
In the future.
I mean, the state will always have one, but if it's up for debate right now, then obviously I'd rather wait on that gets done first.
Yeah, it is an issue that they're both the same height. Does the American flag have to be higher than the state flag? It
It's
does.
always gonna be the highest flag.
So maybe we don't ever want to fly anything on that second.
So what we do at work is we make sure that all the other flags are
Yeah.
lower, even though the poles are the same height.
You just
Yeah.
make them low,
Lower,
okay,
yeah.
okay, okay, so,
We can make it lower, right? That's not a
Okay.
problem.
so,
Even more
so
concise.
for the plaza, there are two flagpoles on the plaza. The library flies an American flag in accordance with the policy adopted by town council. And then the next paragraph is a state of Massachusetts or town of Wakefield flag may be flown from the second pole. No other flags or banners will be hung from the library plaza flagpoles. And then the next section would be promotional banner,
Yeah.
promotional banners.
Or exterior.
So the library may fly promotional banners.
You know, it just nuance. Flags, fly, I don't think you want to say fly banners.
Display.
May
Just
display. May display
Promotional banners.
promotional banners,
We didn't want to.
and that's all
Exterior.
exterior. Exterior promotional banners. As part of a library program, event program or initiative.
We need to put in there like at the discretion of the library director and the board of trustees.
It seems like more like a day-to-day operation.
Catherine likes to go rogue.
Yeah, sometimes they don't.
You can always,
And you always have ultimate discretion. So you walk by and see it, you just, and don't like it. Oh, that's on the next agenda. Call a meeting.
you mean, don't just take it down.
We
have to
don't,
wait for the next.
we don't want that one. Yeah, because everybody has to vote, right? Everybody has to be in agreement.
Yeah.
Okay, so. So how's that sound? I'll.
Go in the right direction.
And I'll type it up for the next meeting and then think about it and
Mhm.
Something else. might-
we'll change something by then, but it's a start. It's a good start.
Excellent.
Okay. Now it's all about to get harder.
Okay, this is easier than
Okay,
We'll never
next,
speak of that again.
that's right. Next item on the agenda, Disability Commission flag request. I didn't see that in the packet.
No, it was by email. It came this summer. There was a request to fly the disability flag in the same way that we had flown those other flags during the spring, summer. It did not go through town council. It came, I don't know if it went to some town council members. It went to Steve Mayo. It's relatively non-controversial, so I think the whole idea was they just passed it along, and since we had done it before, they kind of thought this was the way to go, because otherwise I think they would be applying to the town that doesn't have an extra pole. So there are 2 months that this can be flown. One of them was July, was a disability month, and then October is another disability month. So that's the request.
I think for the Juneteenth and the Pride flags, we're pretty specific about saying, hey, this is a one-time thing because of a request from town council. And my thoughts are we shouldn't get into the precedent, even though it's not controversial now, because that's something we will simply won't speak.
I think we're working on a policy that we don't need to do another one outside the policy.
When we
started to write.
When we approved the June ones, didn't we have the wording in there that?
Yep.
And we will be writing a policy at the next meeting or whatever it's all being said.
And we were doing it at the request of town council.
Right.
And so it's a one-shot deal.
And, put something in there that wasn't going to establish a precedent.
Do we have this request? You said we, right? It's not in
No,
the packet, right? Okay.
I just it just came in an email.
I was just curious as to what came
It
from.
came this summer, and the commission supports it.
Is it from the commission?
There's a
or-
disability commission. Is somebody on the disability?
My wife is on it. I don't know if I like recluse myself from this or something. Yeah, but no, my wife is on it, but she was just learning about it herself recently. And I'm not,
Yeah, it
I
wasn't.
don't believe she was, involved in spearheading the initiative. I think she was just being brought up to speed fairly recently on her most recent disability
I
commission.
just looked up the flag too.
Oh, okay.
Email.
The email, okay. Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, can you read it? I don't think there's anything private, it's just a.
Did it come from the commission or from an individual, I guess?
It came from an individual who I suggested, I told the individual to go through the commission because originally the approvals had gone through the town council and I don't know. Human Rights Commission they had gone through. So I thought at least it would be part of that.
The first email or the second email? I think there were two separate.
I don't even know.
Okay, Wakefield's Commission on Disabilities is back in session and we voted at our September 12th meeting last week to honor your request to support the flying of the disability pride flag. While I understand that July commemorates the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act, October is Disabilities Awareness Month. We would be amenable to supporting flying the flag during October if you are still interested in pursuing this. And if the library has space during October to accommodate the request. And then there's a picture of a flag. And they would be happy to meet with all parties to work out any details. And his contact information. So, before we started with flags, what used to happen was people came to us and wanted a display. And we would set out a display with every book on the topic and we'd make posters or find information and links to things online or whatever. And sometimes we would do programs that had to do with it. But when people saw flags and thought that seemed nice and it's nice for a town, but it's hard for a library.
I think too, the thing about the June flags was that the town council asked us.
And it was
So
due
what was
to a
the-
specific, like their issue.
Yeah.
They didn't have the other flag, couldn't do. It was, more of a special ceremony, it happened.
You don't know for sure that this went to town council first, or?
This did not go to
Never
town
went to town
council, but it went to Steve Mayo, who put me, the original request was there. And Maureen was included as the, she's the chair. Yeah, she's the chair. Yeah.
She had been the
No, I think it
liaison.
was.
The town council liaison, maybe.
No,
Did it change?
Julie
Julie
was last year,
I think was out.
but I don't know if she is.
It's all changes when everything changed. They probably, yeah.
Have they done displays before? For that month, for the October?
Have we?
I don't remember.
No, but you might recall that we have the Disability Commission in our action plan because we wanted to do a walkthrough for accessibility.
Hmm.
And see if maybe there was something else we wanted to work on, but we haven't done that yet, and the time, October's around the corner.
So I mean, I think we shouldn't. My opinion is that we shouldn't start allowing flags while we're doing this. And offer something else or explain that.
Funny you
Get
should,
the word out.
funny you should say that. Is there a disability promotional banner available?
No, because they're not having an event.
I think, yeah.
But it's all, it hasn't been voted on.
To play devil's advocate, if we said we were in the process of doing a policy, and we're still in the process of doing the policy, which may or may not get voted on next month, is it in poor taste to deny this request? If it's up for.
I don't believe so, only because that's what happened in town hall. They were doing a policy and that's why they put that June situation, offered it to us. So now it cited us to do this, correct? To start this.
No, the June flags
procedure.
came to us because there was no flagpole.
Yeah.
For the town to use.
But they wouldn't put it somewhere else. I mean, that's how it got to us originally, that we decided to rewrite it. I just think if we put one more flag, it's going to
Yes, I'm thinking this is
else that
a relatively non-controversial flag that would be up there for a whole month, which gives us time to the next meeting to actually get the policy in place, so no harm, no foul.
And also
I think
creates
it's a- I think-
opportunity for the next group to
Yes.
see what, what the November flag would be, it just. Along those lines
I
as
think
well.
then, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I think then we start setting a precedent.
I guess I feel like we already did, because we allowed 2 flags to fly and said we don't have until we have a policy in place. And now we still don't have a policy in place.
I think we said until we have a policy in place, but also at the request of town council. I mean, it would have to go back to see what we actually
You
said.
said it wasn't setting precedent or something, I think,
So,
But it's
correct.
not just that asked us to do that.
So just if I remember correctly, basically what happened was the town council voted yes, that they wanted to fly these flags, and then looked around and realized they didn't have a flagpole. And then said, but the library is a flagpole, can we use? That's the way it happened, right? Like they had voted to approve the flag. And then, so that's not the same situation right here, right? Like they didn't vote to approve the flag. And then basically borrow our flagpole to fly the flag that they approved. This is a different situation,
But
right?
I don't think they took an actual vote on it because they didn't have a. Yeah, I watched
They shoveled that
meetings.
one across.
Yeah, they sent it direct, they sent it over to us. I think they got the email.
Without an affirmatory vote.
Yeah, I think they just said we don't have, we're not taking a vote on it because there is no flagpole to vote on. And there was a lot of it was back and forth about the POW flag
And part of it is that they had been flying flags at the AmeriCal, which also makes sense because it's like a town building. And there was something about, they don't want 2 flags on one pole, and it wasn't really visible because it wasn't the center of town. But that isn't, I think the pole at AmeriCal is available
yeah,
Well, but there was an American flag on that,
because they can't,
and they couldn't put
they can't.
2 flags on that same pole, unless it was a POW flag.
So there is no place
So
that has.
when they took that up, they were doing it incorrectly or inappropriately.
but they can have 4 flagpoles that they can use at their discretion. It doesn't say that they're going to put American flags at all. Does it? No, so right now I see that they could use the AmeriCal Civic Center if flagged.
And we can do displays.
I think we're at a policy draft for our flags. In the interim, we're more than happy to offer some displays within the facility. But I think you take a little swing here, that's our excuse rate.
So from a legal standpoint, should we not, like, I think I completely agree with you. Like, I completely agree with the sentiment. I think it's kind of, I feel like the town council is shoveling this one on us again. But we shouldn't ever tell the library staff like, hey, you need to do I just think we should leave that out because we shouldn't, the library staff are going to run their programs, right? And we can't be like, but they're also going to run, I mean, I think that we can encourage them to run a disability awareness program in the month, but I don't know if we should like officially say that.
Yeah, we don't want to shove it onto them the way, I mean, like, oh, we're gonna say no to your flag, but here, why don't you ask the director to put up a display?
We don't have an official policy written, but is there any discussion among us of what we're gonna use the flagpoles for? Because I don't feel like I have any discussion about that.
That was gonna be my point, 95% of our discussion on the policy was on, we went right past what gets to go on the flagpoles
Right.
to all this stuff around. It seemed like we were all in immediate agreement that we're not a flag museum. These are the flags and that's the end of the story.
Right,
So
so we kind of have to, we don't have it written and voted on, but I don't think there's any discussion on that, or maybe we want to have a discussion on that today, but I think that the 2 flagpoles and what we've written, I don't think I want anything different added to that in terms of what else can fly. I think the state flag, the American flag, I'm good with that, and I don't think we go any further with that. So we kind of have a policy, we just don't have
But we
it.
don't, because the policy is also including the bracketed polls and it has written in it.
No, but I don't think
on
there's any discussion from the trustees about that, so we could vote on what are we using the polls for in our
Two
policy?
flag policies, a poll policy and a bracket policy.
No, we don't have the policy written, but we could say, is there any discussion on this particular piece? So that piece of maybe not the wording, but is there anything we're adding to the polls other than those flags?
So you're saying vote on the two front poles?
What the two polls are used for, not what they're, with the language.
But they will only be the American flag.
But so what your suggestion is we can vote on that tonight and make it an official policy as of tonight for the two posts.
Official part of the policy.
I think we should work on the draft.
Well, if that covers us for having to do this, I think it's,
It's just a request. We can deny a request. And
well, she said, Amy was saying about what we said before for the first request. So that's, either way is fine with me. I just don't think we put up a flag that we're just gonna have to re-explain after. For the next person, for November, December, we don't know.
Well, we
It's not
have,
worth the time.
we have a flag policy. It hasn't been adopted yet. Hence-
Or written.
And hence it's being drafted. In essence, there's a consensus as to what the policy is going to be. It hasn't been formally adopted. That said, who is the correspondence actually to? Is it to the trustees or is it to the director?
I think it's too late.
Lucky you.
Was it? Yeah, well, it wasn't to you, it was to me. You wouldn't want it.
You don't want it or directed to you.
It came to me, but I believe I said it had to go to the trustees.
We send it to the town council.
It's what?
Can we send it to the town council? Can we say?
They were asking specifically about using our flag for the library flag. Well, I mean, the other thing we can say is am I understanding correctly, or did I miss something? Like that, they're just seeing this, the trustees are just seeing this now, right?
Yes.
So I think it's fair to say on September 28th, maybe we, given the timing, do we have the capacity to do a flag? Oh, I don't know if it's for an October 1st thing, you know what I mean? Like, I think they were even
We
running
can
up
vote
against
on
the
the
clock.
request and give her a classification of why it goes one way or the other, I guess.
What was the date on the email? Was it today, yesterday? So that's the third?
Recent one was September 18th.
It started in
There's been a
June.
Correspondence.
Right.
Unless there was one I wasn't ready to.
The one from Marie was from the commission, right? Was that the 18th?
Yes.
Yeah, so their meeting was the 12th, and she sent me that on the 18th. And so I brought it to this meeting.
Well,
I mean, I think we also have to, so to earlier point, do we have to investigate the safety, like the OSHA requirements, or I don't know, we have a couple of like.
I wasn't kidding about it.
No, but I mean, like, we have a little, like, not an easy thing, even if we wanted to approve the request, I think they would have to do some due diligence on them.
That was the next point. For discussion, what happens if we said yes, right?
then they would probably want to have a, there might be talk about a ceremony or,
Yeah,
This is-
I would have to coordinate that, and I'd have to get somebody, I'd probably be calling you to raise it, or Amy, because
I think there's
I've got-
multiple reasons for
I got staff here with all the issues right now.
respectfully declining for whatever, for all these reasons, one of these reasons, whatever.
I mean, we don't have to give a reason, we could just
Right, I mean, well, I mean, that's
You
up to
can
her
just, you can
discretion.
just watch the video. And we're all-
Have you seen what this entails?
Yeah,
But
Do we have to vote on it? Like, what do we have to do right
I think we do because
yeah,
it's a
you have to,
request.
you have to vote.
Okay.
I've had a request, I can't make that decision, and
Yeah,
I don't really want to.
We could probably be real sticklers and say, well, they didn't ask the trustees, so we're gonna table it. Try and run out the clock. I think the right thing to do is to take an up or down vote.
We decline
Right.
or, and we can give a reason or not, that's. So that's
I still think the reason can be with one wedding flag policy. Presently, we're following the town guidelines for the green poles.
now? I don't think we should give a reason. Only in the sense that, like, maybe unofficially, but
The reasons are
not.
all been reported.
Yes, and I think it's okay to give a reason, because that's the truth. I mean, it's just it's a piece of information. And there's nothing wrong.
And
with it.
in an email, I would say from myself and the staff that we would certainly do a display.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'd all encourage that and we would stop short of saying, go do, but yeah.
Because we don't know that another request isn't coming next week for the next month is all my point, so I think that would
That's
that's
it too. You know, we'll
Yeah.
end up with something for just for November, and it will, yeah. It's just, I think it needs to stop happening and go to a municipal building where it belongs.
Doesn't feel great saying no to the disability commission.
Well,
I think that's
I know,
Yeah.
I know, so. Which is why you do content neutral.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
that's why, because you get to the best.
Which
of-
it's why we said yes at the last minute, when we were asked the question before, we don't want to, we want to be open, we want to include everyone, but now we got this started, so it is what it is.
All right, so I guess we'll take a vote on whether to accept someone should make a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, what,
Second,
Make a
Well,
make
you
a motion
made a vote
to vote on whether to flag the disability commission flag for the month of October.
You need to motion one way or the other, like to motion to approve or motion to deny.
Motion to approve to flag disability flag.
Motion to deny.
But we're denying,
Oh,
Well, if the motion's to approve, you just vote no, so, yeah.
right?
So what's the motion?
I'm confused.
Gordon made a
Make- Motion to deny
Request
flag,
to fly a
flag
flag.
request. Motion to deny flag.
So an affirmative vote is denying the request, right?
Correct.
is there a second?
Second,
Right. Let's vote, Paul,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Chris, yes, Susan,
Yes.
Laura, Scott,
yes.
Adam,
Yes, sorry.
and I'm a yes. The motion passes. All right, items not reasonably anticipated by the chair.
so much is on, but there's nothing is there. So we're gonna have a big agenda next month. I know lots of stuff will come up with everybody.
Next.
26th.
Okay, here.
And we'll finish the flag policy first, so that we get that out of there.
We saw the 9 p.m. cutoff, right?
We have a 9 p.m. cutoff.
No, I think we haven't had in-person meetings in so long.
Oh, yeah, right, we want these,
We're
we
kicked
just
out.
want, we want you anyway.
I mean.
But we get
The
locked in.
policy.
That's right.
We get locked in for the entire night, so we're gonna skate through it.
We need to talk about the. That was just a clean copy of what we get.
Oh, I just, you put the mission statement there in case you see
Stuck in
it
a
for
hurricane right now.
the policy. I'm referring to what our mission actually is.
All right, next friends meeting is October 13th. Jackie's primary, I'm the backup. And our next trustees meeting is October 26th, 2022. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So.
All second? Second. All right, on the motion to adjourn, the vote, Paul,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Chris. Yes. Susan,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
yes, thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Oh, no, no, oh, thank you, no, no. Thank